You know Drew Fallon. He's the founder and CEO of Iris, financial software for D2C businesses, e-commerce businesses, helping them really replace the idea of an outsourced CFO. And there's big news in the world of Iris. He's raising money. He's announced it publicly. And he's going to talk to me today about why and really everything he's seeing. He has a really awesome perspective where he can see into the finances, into the books of a whole bunch of D2C businesses much more closely than a lot of other people can. So today we're going to talk about why he's raising money, what that's going to do for Iris and for its customers, and why that's good. We're going to talk about why everybody is selling a gummy right now and why that is a good business, and who's winning without selling a gummy and why are they winning. Really get into the finances of D2C businesses. This is going to be a great episode. You know Drew, you've been helped by him. Oh, we're going to talk about should you raise money or not? Lots of good stuff. Let's stop delaying it. Let's go. Let's get into it with Drew Fallon. What's up, Drew?
How are you doing, Andrew?
Good, man. Great to have you back. Thanks for taking time.
Thanks for having me back. I forgot.
Congratulations. I don't know. It was a while ago.
Thank you. Yeah,
we're old friends at this point. Yeah. So this is exciting. You raised money. Tell people about it and tell people what happened and what you're doing.
Yeah, we raised a seed round, which we announced publicly. What day is today? We announced publicly on Tuesday. So it was about a $6.2 million seed round. So pretty big, honestly, for a seed round. But yeah, I mean, we raised it from this Boston group called Glasswing, which we're super excited to partner with. They're very every VC is kind of like an AI VC these days. But these guys are actually like technically sophisticated and understand the technologies that we're building, and really we're able to kind of understand the vision from we're building like the AI CFO, right? And it's not the AI CFO today, but we know we're building the groundwork to be able to actually achieve that. And so just investing more into the product. We already have a pretty significant engineering team. I think it's like maybe 10 or 12 already, so we'll add to that. And then we were joking pre-show about building businesses. So I actually, hired up Ray, our chief of staff. We might do like a ops person. We're going to hire some go-to-market people. So honestly, it was like that 0 to 1 moment. I mean, we're over like 1 million, but like 0 to 1 in terms of like now you feel like you're ready to go on to like the next sort of phase of growing and building a company. So it felt good.
So your growth plan isn't just you doing public P&L breakdowns for forever on Twitter?
I think people might know this by now. I mean, so I don't know. I never ever actually plug Iris that heavily. I mean, sometimes I do, but it's not like there's no call to action. I hope you like this breakdown, sign up for Iris. So people sometimes ask me if I do this as a hobby. And I'm like, no, this takes 5 hours a day. I don't do this for fun. I mean, I enjoy it, but this is not if I stop tweeting, we stop growing. So the fundraise was honestly primarily to address that. I mean, we've never done we just started Outbound a week or two ago. I should pick your brain on this offline about I don't even know what to do. I've just been talking. I don't know.
Pick it right here. Let's do it right now. Let's do it live.
Have you ever done B2B stuff?
No, but I have a very strong opinion about this in D2C.
Okay, say more.
Influencer is everything. That's what I think.
Influencer is everything?
What I basically think is that if you can get the cool kids talking about your product that in software and validating it, and especially the people who are aligned with you, I think it's overwhelmingly the best thing you can do. That's the first thing I would say. The second thing is I think the sales cycle is fairly long, and what I mean by that is that it's just not for me, I'm a direct response D2C meta ads guy. And I just think that would be the wrong instinct in your world, essentially, that there's going to be lots of brands that hear about you on podcasts and on tweets and everything else for 8 months. And then they're going to be like, you know what? I finally now it's like selling insurance, where it's the reason that Geico has such a big ad budget is because you only need insurance when you buy a new car or whatever. And so the whole game is be top of mind when the problem shows up. And I think the combination of awareness to accomplish that, so that when the problem shows up, people think, oh, Iris, I've heard, can be my CFO. Plus I think validated by the smart people. If I was you, I would be knocking down Taylor Holiday's door to get a deal with him or something. I don't even know if he would do it, but it's
Taylor's too good for. Yeah.
Well, but it's he's a very financy guy in his content, to where it's like, if he's saying this will help you grow financially, that would probably really validate your claims, because a lot of people just can't evaluate it themselves. So that's like my twofold thing is like, it's a slower sales cycle, and the smart B2B software people who I work with who sponsor my show, they really get that. They understand. One of them actually told me at one point, I was like, is there some CAC you're trying to get with your spend on my podcast ads? Is there, how many leads makes this good? And so that you're going to want to renew with me. And he's like, I don't care. He was like, he said, like, what I know is that when we spend money on ads, our business grows over time. And like, I was like, that makes sense. So I'll tell you a third thing. I'll tell you in a second. A third thing I'll tell you is that I also think that people talk. And so just like having a great product goes really far. Just like, we just think about the ultimate negative example, this is Icon, where everybody is just so happy to talk about how bad Icon is. And I don't have an opinion about it, but people are just because they made such strong claims and everybody talks, a bunch of bad experiences really snowball,
Did you ever try Icon?
Like for 5 minutes. But who sponsors this show? This particular episode, I'm happy to tell you, is sponsored by Move Supply Chain, which is like my fractional supply chain team in the Philippines. They built my brand supply chain. And I really believe in them. And then INTELLIGEMS, who I've been working with for a while, huge fan of INTELLIGEMS. And literally every one of my clients uses them. And that's a thing for me is like, I actually don't take sponsors who I don't use. So I think those are I think I can deliver really good value to them, even though my reach is not like monstrous, So yeah. Anyway, that's my take. What do you think about that?
I agree. The consideration cycles are extremely long. So like, I'll give you an example. Like sometimes when I post something, I'll be like, comment. This is a funny one. Comment oats to get like the file of Bobo's oats, whatever. When I did that, I thought it was so funny because I was like, what's like the dumbest thing I can get like all these like old people on LinkedIn to like comment on my post. And then so the CFO of Caden Lane, I don't know if you know Kristen, she like I think she was like, she goes oats. And this was in like January. And then, fast forward, I think we like onboarded Caden Lane in like July, right? So like, I DM'd her like this spreadsheet in January, and then the next message is like 7 months later. And she's like, "Hey, like we're thinking about budgeting tools, dashboarding tools, whatever. Can we chat?" So yeah, I mean, we have customers that I've talked to for a year before we onboard them. So that's definitely true. I agree. I think influencers are good for the right influencers. This D2C world has been betrayed. By the influencer, I would say, in many times. And so we haven't done it. I don't know that we will. I would do it. Like if Taylor would take my money, I would totally pay Taylor. But that's because Taylor is like a very,
high integrity. Yeah.
Very high integrity person. Yeah. So, I agree with you with just a little bit of an asterisk on that one.
Well, that's right. And I would say it the same way. And I would tell a D2C brand that same thing in general, that like essentially your influencer spend is going to work much better if people really like and use your product. And you can't always get that in D2C. Like I get, I saw an ad today with the San Diego Padres right fielder, Fernando Tatis Jr., talking about Arrowhead water. And I just thought, why did they spend that money on him? Like, there's just no way. Like, it's so stupid.
Like this guy loves
I don't know, mass brand awareness, stuff like that might work and brand equity stuff. But it was just like, him talking about how important hydration is for him with Arrowhead water just was so silly. But like for D2C brands, I think that the same principle applies to some degree, but I think you're right. In SaaS, you got to be really careful, because what you don't want to do is just get a bunch of shills who like just take your money to tweet, because that actually has the exact reverse impact. It will like make your brand, it will make your software look bad. And Iris is a business that is like needs to be taken seriously. Like that's the thing. It's a serious business. It's like we are going to get involved with your finances, and so I would be all about like find the smart people and get the smart people saying yes, this really helped us. Which is why I think I don't know exactly what the Operators Podcast guys charge, but I'm pretty confident it's a ton of money because
it's significant.
Because they have maintained their reputations really, really well. Yeah. And, they do like real endorsements. And I think that's probably a very high spend that's worth it to those brands, to the software companies.
I mean, they seem to have, they seem to have the same sponsors season. I mean, yeah. So, but yeah, it must work.
Yeah. All right. That's very inside baseball, but I think people who listen to this podcast generally are kind of clued into the space and will be interested in that. I would love, if you're watching this and you're watching it on YouTube, leave a comment about what you think about what Drew ought to do to grow his business and whether or not I'm right about influencers.
I'm currently hiring for a head of marketing or head of growth, like whatever you want to call it, because I have no idea what to do. They just handed me like $6 million and I'm like, okay, like I'm going to do like here's the thing. I put $10 behind, we have a company called Alermi, that's on Iris, and she posted like this really nice post. And so I was like, can I put $10 a day behind your LinkedIn post?
Sponsoring it.
Yeah. So I think I'm $70 into my.
Have you thought about just putting it all into Bitcoin?
There would be some governance approvals there probably these days.
Okay, well, maybe you shouldn't do that. So is there anything you want to say else about just sort of where Iris is going while we're on the subject and you're raising money? It's an exciting moment like that. You just mentioned the AI CFO, just for people who are listening and care and see you building a company and all that stuff. Tell people a little bit about the future of that. This is not like a sponsored episode or anything. Drew did not deploy any of that $6 million to get on this show.
Maybe I should have. Yeah. No, so
you got it for free, man. Take the free media. Yeah.
So yeah, I think having run one of these brands for a really long time, well into the 8 figures across probably like a dozen different sales channels, dozens of SKUs. The thing that I was like never able to quite figure out was like aligning my sales forecasting with my inventory forecasting. In other words, like Matt, we were growing so fast that it was really hard to keep up with inventory. And then eventually it's like you make one wrong PO or like, you end up with like all this, like all these cash issues. And so like I see so many of these companies like Iris go out and they say, we're going to solve the inventory problem by solving the inventory problem. And I'm like, the inventory problem is not like a problem. The problem is forecasting sales. If you think you're going to do $100 million next year or $10 million next year, and you only do 5, that's where you get into trouble. So you have to start at the actual sales forecast, which then is reduced down to CAC and spend and velocities if you have retail. And so, what we're doing, just to take a step back, is really we're structuring the data of commerce to run analyses that actually help you drive better forecasting, given all the facts that we know to be true, right? So Iris is like an AI CFO, but it's the smartest AI. It's 100 billion times smarter than any human being because, we already have, 130 or 150 brands. We have, they combine for 5 billion plus of GMV. And so all of this data comes into one place and it says, hey, when you're a personal care brand that has, most of their customers on the West Coast and the AOVs are $55, you tend to see a really meaningful slowdown in growth around $40 million annually. And so, like if people knew what to expect, which is, by the way, sort of illustrated in their financial model, if they knew what to expect, then they would make a lot less mistakes. And look, we don't have a crystal ball, we don't know what the future holds, but we can use data to help people make better forecasts, make better decisions. And so the push that we're really making now, and I haven't said much about this publicly yet, I don't really know when this is coming out or really care, I guess, but like inventory planning is our sort of next big push. And so that's because we sort of done a lot of the forward-looking forecasting, and then the next logical transition is into inventory planning. So it's why you got to raise more money too. It's like becoming like a NetSuite X type. It's a big piece of software.
Yeah. Every one of my clients is using INTELLIGEMS at this point, and they're using it for the very clear reason of making every website visit on their site more valuable to their business. And they do that by setting up split tests that allow you to test all the things that really move the needle for your business. So of course, some of that is classic CRO, like landing page tests, design changes, things like that. That stuff really matters. And INTELLIGEMS makes that incredibly fast and easy to do. And most importantly, to measure that not only at the level of conversion rate or even average order value changes on both sides of your split test, but actually by tying into your cost of goods data, as people have different product preferences and things like that in the CRO tests that you run, they actually spit out your profit per visit, which is this sort of the key metric to making every split test really, really valuable for you, because that's what you really care about at the end of the day. So INTELLIGEMS can help you do that with the basic tests, but they can actually go way beyond those basic tests to real operational excellence, doing the kinds of things Drew and I were talking about in this particular episode. Like, can you raise your price on your products? Or is your product pricing less elastic than you think? If so, that's fantastic news. And you can find out for certain with clarity by running a split test with INTELLIGEMS. You do the same thing with things like your free shipping threshold, with things like your cost that you're charging shipping. Like, should you charge $5 for shipping? Should you charge $7? Should you charge $3? Well, you can see the impact on the actual profit that each click drives, not just the conversion rate. What about your site-wide offers for new customers, the 10% off you give people when they opt into your email list, whatever. All that stuff can and should be tested, and it can be done easily and smoothly without the help of a developer by going to intelligems.io and checking it out for yourself today. Pretty much all of the good brands that I see are doing this kind of testing on their website at some point in their journey, and probably in the mid 7 figures, if not earlier. Really beyond that, it's a core part of what they are doing. Go to intelligems.io to get started with that today. Use the code FARIS20, FARIS 20, to get 20% off your first 3 months. FARIS20 to get started with INTELLIGEMS today. Yeah, it makes sense. And I mean, I think it also makes sense to me why you guys would sort of need to be up market a little bit, where like that sort of like 8-figure kind of brand is the place to be. And it makes me optimistic about your future, because I think a lot of e-commerce brands are growing, and it's just partly a factor of time, just like they're going to get there.
Well, did you see my tweet today? August was the first month since April. August of 2025 is the first month, is the highest e-commerce penetration month of all time, higher than April of 2020. Wow. So we finally lapped COVID.
Beat COVID. Yeah, we beat COVID. And I just the trend here is just up and to the right, very consistently, with like the weird bumps, obviously, and bump and drop for COVID. But if you sort of smooth that out, all it did is it seemed like slightly accelerated total e-commerce adoption, not as much as it looked like at first. But yeah, I'm so optimistic about it. And what that number reflects, I think, is just like more bigger e-commerce brands. And I think about this all the time, because just having been in e-commerce for 10 or 11 years now, the brands they're just so many more big brands than there used to be. Like the idea of a 9-figure brand just wasn't a thing when we started. Like
really?
DTC, or if it was like the North Face. Like it was like a legacy brand that had an e-commerce company. I guess you're wearing Patagonia right now, so there you go. But
the Irish Patagonia.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. So I think like, I think that like that space you're going to is great. I also think with the forecasting thing, that kind of forecasting is essentially impossible if you're like sub 5 million, right? Like it's like, maybe the future is too uncertain. You just don't know. You actually have to build your business at that stage of business to, on the recognition that you are not going to be able to predict your CAC over the next year. It's too, you're still in the stage where a couple new ads can just like overhaul your business, And
so we have like an analytics suite that like the smaller brands use, where it's like less of the forecasting. But I agree. Like I've been saying this line a little bit, which is like, our problem become like the problem that Iris is like truly solving is a problem at like 7 to 10 million of revenue. Your problem before 7 or 10 million of revenue is that you're not at 7 or 10 million of revenue. And until, so I agree. We're generally working these days with slightly larger brands. Yeah, I would say so.
So you talk about slightly larger brands. Who's winning right now in e-commerce? And you talked about, August being a good month. Like, what are the brands that are really winning right now?
I'm telling you, man, I don't know what is going on in like these like powdered supplements, be it electrolytes or like calming, like ashwagandha is popular. The gummies, like it's this wellness supplement category, and then like protein, where I'm like talking to our customers, and they're like saying these things, and I'm just like, what the hell is going on? So I'm having on my podcast, I'm having Sam McBride, who was the former COO of RX Bar, come onto a podcast just to come try to help me make sense of like what in the world is going on with these protein companies. I don't understand. So electrolytes, like powdered supplements, like anything sort of like in the endurance space too, you know. I don't know if you can back me up on this, but like I'm seeing like not even kidding, like brands going from like 10 to 200 in like a matter of like 18 or 24 months.
Yeah, I don't normally see that level of growth necessarily, but
That's not typical, but it's there.
yeah, but stupid numbers and stupid profit numbers. I can tell you, and I mean, certainly, yeah, I've seen that with, I have, a supplement client that is smashing and that's just doing really, really well. What, I haven't answered this question. I'm just curious if there's anything from your perspective. Why does, what are the, and there's probably more than one answer, but why are these brands winning so much?
Oh God, who was it? Okay, so like how like Simple Modern and like every water bottle company from like 2020 to like 2024 went nuts. I asked somebody, why are these powders and doing so well? And they were like, well, now everybody owns so many water bottles and they're drinking so much more water that they like want to put stuff in it. And I was like, that doesn't feel like super scientific, but I guess that like kind of tracks. So like COVID like made like water bottles cool. And so like now people like just drink more water, I guess. I
mean, that certainly would be one of the reasons potentially electrolytes would make sense. But, I don't know that the answer's like organ
Mike
pills.
Beckham is the answer.
Yeah, he usually is. Yeah, it's so funny because I had the 2 interviews ago, which has not come out at the time of you and I recording, but Brian Porter was on, their chief e-commerce officer. Yeah. He's one of the sneakiest, just killers in space. I think he's one of the smartest guys in our space. He's so smart. But I was actually talking to him about the opposite, how Simple Modern is just a terrible e-commerce business. And it's like, it's a terrible D2C business. And he would say, and what is true is that they were actually built Amazon first. And so their economics reflect that, and you're giving a funny answer here, Drew. I just expected knowing you to give a more financial answer as to why those companies are all crushing.
I'm telling you, I mean, if you want the real answer, it's just because they have the high gross margin in the repeat. But here's the thing:
but don't go over that too fast, because that's like 65 points of landed margin plus 300% LTV in a year goes really, really far, right?
Yeah, well, that's like the other thing, and like there's I've seen so many companies that come to us and like, one of the things that I tweeted about this that nobody liked it, but like I tweeted like, just come to Iris and like just let me like benchmark you, because like if you have a gross margin, like there was this company, I won't say obviously, but like they had a gross margin that was like significantly below like where I would expect. They're like burning like $100K a month or something. And then like it just took me to like look at them and be like, do you know like where this like should be? And they're like, no. And I was like, well, it should be like here. And then they're like, like some people just like they just don't like even like know. Cause like, and honestly, I remember this, like being in the operator seat, like you're so like, you only ever see one P&L, So like, it's hard to know like what these other businesses look like.
Did they go fix? I mean, so they needed to go like rejigger their supply chain.
Yeah, they fixed it. Now they just raised their prices like a little bit.
I mean, this is so funny because we're doing INTELLIGEMS and Move Supply Chain as the sponsors for this episode.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Like I said,
those are the perfect sponsors for that.
Yeah, and it's like, on the one hand, one of the things I always say about Move Supply Chain is like, the reason you should have a supply chain agency, and that's really what they are, just like you have an ads agency or whatever, is because I know from talking to a lot of e-commerce founders that they have spent no time really hammering the supply chain. And even if they wanted to, they wouldn't know where to start. It would be just like opening their ad account for the first time, except there's way less public content about how to do it. And so like, it's just people who have done it for a long time. They come into your business, and I've talked to their salespeople and like their CEO who says like, we like start giggling on a lot of intake calls because people's supply chains are such a disaster that we can win so big, so fast, because they just don't know. And it's just, you just don't know what you don't know. Exactly what you said. So on the one side, there's that, hammer weight that. And then INTELLIGEMS is like a perfect one for this too, because exactly what you said is true. People have way less price elasticity than they think. And you can actually just get a ton of margin back by raising your prices sometimes. Now you got to figure that out. And so INTELLIGEMS, like, one of their promises is that they can help you actually split test your price. But like we didn't plan to put the ad read in there, but it is a perfect way of thinking about this and the financial engineering of your business. And I do think, like, Taylor had popularized this idea of 4-quarter accounting a while back. And that's like a real gift, I think, to the e-commerce space. Go check out some of his content there. And I've tried to put out some content along these lines as well. But just the notion that, like, bucket your P&L into these different buckets, into these different right? The 4 of them, just as a reminder, would be cost of delivery, variable costs, OpEx, fixed costs, CAC, all your advertising spend, and then profit. And just have some way to model out what those numbers each need to be at for that last bucket to be positive, and to be how positive you want it to be. And just having some sense of, like, where you need to get that to is really good. And, I know Taylor's put out some benchmarks about this, but they're going to really be different in different industries and different categories and all that kind of stuff. I just think it's such a helpful exercise to go through that. And I'm glad to hear that you, like, exactly what you said is true, right? Somebody comes to you and you can just say to them, like, you just don't have enough margin. Like, that's your problem. You just don't have enough margin. You heard me say it. You know what a Facebook ads agency is. Do you know that there is such a thing called a supply chain agency in our space, available for you to take all the knowledge that the people in the agency have from building a whole bunch of D2C supply chains and bringing that knowledge to your business to help you go find great manufacturers, get better payment terms, reduce your MOQs, get better quality product, reduce your lead times, and ultimately reduce your unit costs. All the things required to make your supply chain work for your business, create more margin, create more flexibility in your business, create backups, redundancies so that you have less risk. All those things are possible. It's just a huge job. And if you don't know where to start, well, then you don't know where to start. And it's an overwhelming job to do it. And so that's why you should reach out to my friends at Move Supply Chain, the people who built my brand supply chain as we're building from the ground up. They are based in the Philippines, which is really good for you at the supply chain level for multiple reasons. One of them is they're really affordable. Your dollars go really far in the Philippines. They can hire incredible talent in their business, apply it to your business, and not charge you so much money that it's going to be cost prohibitive. Secondly, the Philippines is an extremely short flight and no visa complications, both to China and to Vietnam in particular. So if you're manufacturing in either of those two places, you can have people representing your brand really quickly and easily with manufacturers, boots on the ground there, showing up at Canton Fair, all those things to make that happen. You really should reach out. If you haven't done serious work trying to optimize your supply chain and make your supply chain work better for you, you should at least get on a call and see if they can help you. I am a huge fan. Everything I do in some way touches Move Supply Chain and its 2 sister companies. So go to movesupplychain.com, tell them that I sent you, get on a call, see if they can help. They will tell you honestly if they can. Movesupplychain.com, make it happen today.
Well, and so I think I want to get your take on this this idea. So, like, I consider, like, a market to be just like a finite like exchange of dollars going on at all times. And then, like, a company is basically like a bucket. And so, like, if there's, like, in the air, there's, like, all these, like, dollars just flying around. Your company is like a bucket, and you can, like, put your bucket up into those, like, that cloud of dollars or whatever. If you have a growth, like, you want to make your bucket as big as you can. And, like, how do you make the bucket bigger? You have to be able to tolerate a higher CAC. How do you tolerate a higher CAC? You either produce enough dollars on the first sale, or you have a bunch of subsequent sales. And so, like, the gross profit is effectively like the answer. It's like you need to sell. This is business 101. You need to sell your things for as little as possible, or you need to buy your things for as little as possible and sell them for as much as possible, and your bucket gets bigger. And so, like, when you handicap yourself, especially in an industry like supplements or beauty or, like, these high margin industries, like, if you're below 50%, you're just not gonna make it. Like, the whole point is that you can, like, sustain. Yeah. So I'm trying to think through that, like, analogy a little bit.
It's a good analogy. What I would actually say makes the bucket bigger is the actual ad dollars deployed, and in the sense of, like, what they are is reach. It makes it so that your bucket, like, because that is what you're paying for on Meta. You're just paying for a megaphone, and you're just making your megaphone louder when you spend more money. And so if you have a larger, if you have more room in your COGS, right, or in your cost of delivery, basically, then yes, you can make it louder and you can sustain that cost. And I think that's,
you're right. Yeah.
That's exactly that. Certainly with a brand that I'm starting, that's the entire bet, is that it's basically margin. Because I watched at least one client of mine, I have multiple clients of mine, but really one client of mine in particular, just has really taught me, like, man, when you have extreme gross margin, it is such a cheat code. Meta just works. And so that's like, that's why I'm starting a men's cologne brand, right? It's like, there's really good margin in the business.
Yeah. And it's like, look at like Liquid Death, Olipop, like they don't even, Olipop might, but like these, like, remember, you remember more than I do. In 2020, there was all sorts of food and beverage on the internet. Everybody was selling D2C beverages. It was like it was the thing.
Yeah.
Now there's none.
Because it doesn't
work.
That's the other thing that highlights this, right? That's a low margin product. You can't charge that much money for it. It's super expensive to ship. It's like a supplement that is sciencey, you can charge so much money for, and it's super cheap to ship. And then the other thing, I think this is really underrated about D2C, and I've been trying to say this everywhere I can say it recently, is that in the model of D2C, the thing that makes it a business model at all, actually, is that core to the concept is that you ship a product to a customer's individual door, from your warehouse to them. And people underrate how significant that is in terms of the way the customer interacts with the brand, in terms of the way that like the customer experiences it, and also the way that affects your cost structure. Like there are many brands, I'm sure you've seen them, where the cost of shipping a product to the customer's door, fully loaded, especially when you factor in like 3PL fees and the actual like
Mad
freight
Rabbits
cost,
was way more,
than the product itself, right?
Way more, probably double.
And so, yes, and so that what that shows you is that and people will just kind of be like, oh, it's just kind of part of the game, and it's like, no, like, you need to think about how to optimize that interaction. And this is another thing that has particularly pills that going for them, supplements, or gummies as the case may be, is that like, it's actually the very best mechanism for that particular kind of product. Because I know if I'm taking a supplement, I want 60 of them every 30 days if I'm taking 2 a day, right? And so like a subscription approach to that is actually awesome. It's way better than going to the store.
It's actually valuable versus
That's
like,
right.
Yeah, versus like,
I have to go to the store and pick it up in my cart and I might run out, whatever. I know exactly how many I'm going to need exactly how often. So I'm not going to have too much or too little. And I think like, it's just really important for brands to stop and think about, how does the process of shipping a product to my customer reach out? I do have a food and bev client right now that is kind of a different sort of space, but we have really seen in that business how important shipping timeline is to them, because it's a food product, it's a perishable food. And so it's like, and they're spending so much time in that business hammering the supply chain, and it's having massive margin impact for them. They're ending up in a really good margin space and a really good customer experience. And, but it's a huge amount of work. It's just really worth it. And so that, again, sort of an extreme example. Apparel brands have something similar here, where it's like, you can't try it on. And so figuring out your process for how you get the thing to the customer. Anyway, it's that interaction, I think, is just really underrated. And each brand needs to think about, what do I do there? How do I make that as good of an experience as possible? What are all the little ways to optimize that? Because it's really core to the model.
Yeah. I mean, I think you bring up a good point too, which is like, I've been thinking a little bit more about this, is like supply chain as like a moat, right? So like, I just got back from the office of a big brand here in Chicago. And it's perishable food. But not only is it perishable, but it's raw. So like, like HelloFresh sends you food, but it's like sort of like pre-cooked. This guy's sending you like raw food. And so like, they're like the only brand that does this. And they have no direct competition, because nobody else wants to try to figure out at all, like how the heck you're going to do that. Right. So like these well-designed supply, they're literally moats, like, especially, if you've done it early on, right? I mean, if you figured this out in 2015, 2018, like now you're like, it's way harder today. Not that it wasn't hard then, but and the supplements and like the gummies and whatever, it's like, is there like a big moat to that stuff? I mean, maybe there's
the thing I wonder is like, I do think there's like a demand side growth there, where like a lot of people, the world is getting richer all the time. People are investing in their health. There's a rise in the concepts of functional medicine. There's a lot of garbage in supplements, but there's also a lot of real stuff that actually really does make you healthier, and like, and so like, It totally, yeah. And like you probably should really be taking creatine every day, like it's just like, so far as I can tell, so it's like, well, okay, someone's got to supply the creatine then. And there's probably a lot of people still realizing that. Again, that delivery mechanism for it is really good. What I really wonder in that space, and one of the things that makes me a little nervous about it, is if somebody's going to come around at some point with deeper pockets than everybody else. And I'm actually curious if you've seen this, and just sustain, they're going to realize that the return on invested capital in acquiring a pill customer is so freaking high on subscription that like the smart money is to spend a whole bunch more money a whole bunch earlier, and just like push out the timeline to realization of the value really far, and win that way essentially. It's sort of, to me, makes me, it like looks to me like one of those businesses where if you wanted to build a really big business, it's one of the e-com D2C spaces that most lends towards the idea of raising money. We were going to talk about this maybe a little, but like why you would or wouldn't raise money in software versus CPG is an interesting question. But like one of the differences there is just like essentially timeline to realize subscription value versus the costs involved with like hiring 10 engineers, like you said. Like that's the SaaS problem, right? Where I think there's something similar with some of these supplement companies is that people are going to be like, wait a minute, if I'm willing to pay $50 to acquire a customer, and then then I'm profitable in 60 days, what happens if I am willing to pay $200 to acquire a customer, and I can just sustain the 180 days, and I'll just do that for forever? Like, that I think becomes an interesting proposition. And what I wonder is if that's going to start driving up CACs really, really, really high in that category at some point, to where it's going to get muscled out.
Point, but not only should that be that's like a valid underwriting case for growth equity or like venture capital, right? So like until it's not, right? Until it never actually happens. But like in a vacuum where it actually happens, then yeah, like you can get capital behind that. And by the way, that capital is your competitive advantage, like you're describing, right? So I think it's interesting from a capital market perspective, just like maybe on like the sort of strategic acquirer side is interesting, or because like it becomes like a buy versus build thing, right? So like I was hanging out with the managing partner of a $3 billion fund called Left Lane Capital. Like first money into like Farmer's Dog and some of these other things. And he was just kind of, and I think I said this on Twitter the other day. He's like, they don't buy you because you hit 100 million or you're making 50 million of EBITDA. They buy you because they're scared, and they're scared that they can't just do what you're doing, right? And so like they're either going to do that, like you're saying, and like it'll work, or if they can't, then they have to buy. But you're crazy if you don't think they're going to try first, So it's something to like keep in mind as you're like building a business. Is like you don't just like get the $1 billion payday for like hitting X revenue if all the Unilever has to do is like start like a gummy. It's not like that.
Yeah. Do you make the rest of the case for raising in CPG? Do you see any other, like it's become, I think, almost a doctrinal point that you ought not raise if you're running a D2C brand. I had an interesting conversation with Will Nitza about this from IQ Bar, where Will, he talked about how growth is so important to him that like raising was a no-brainer, and he's raised a couple rounds. But and he's been public about it. But the thing is, that's a food and bev space. So he's basically saying like, you can't be profitable in that space until you get real manufacturing scale, and so like you just have to spend money getting your business to be bigger so that you can go to bigger and better manufacturers, so that you can get more COGS, or so you can get better COGS. Because he's talking about it in terms of like cutting his COGS by 2/3 eventually, he had to get to 100 million or whatever to do it, whatever his number was.
I think he competes in like a very mass setting, and
that's true too. Mass retail for sure.
That may be true in the mass, but that is not true anywhere else. Like, I mean, I said, like some of these protein bar companies, I'm just like, how, like they're printing cash and it's freaking $7 for a bar. I'm like, what is going on here? But yeah, maybe at like Costco, that's true. Certainly at Costco, that's true. So this is a good topic. I think the pendulum has swung so far the other way, right? So like we were all raising money, it was great, we were all having fun, getting rich, and then 2022 happens and it all goes to crap, and so now it's like you can't possibly raise money for your CPG brand. Like, are you an idiot? And it's like, no, that's like people have been raising money for CPG brands for 50 years. Like that, like this is, well, maybe not 50, maybe 30 or 20, whatever. It's been a long time. The problem that happened in like sort of like the liquidity supernova of COVID was like you started to get the wrong investors investing into the brands. And so the expectations and the underwriting became misaligned between founder and investor. And like that's where markets stall. And like that's where money evaporates. Because like, why are you investing in this gummy brand at a $200 million valuation? That's the problem. The problem is not taking the money. The problem is the prices that the money was accepted at and the ultimate outcomes of the brand. So what I've seen a lot of and what I'm loving is a correction in underwriting. So like these I've written really extensively about this, but essentially, VC ran out of software deals, so they moved over to like this D2C thing. That didn't really work, and so now the VCs are going back to software. But you have this cohort of like these growth equity. I wouldn't even call them like venture capitalists. They're like, they want 5 or 10x or 3x, 2x even sometimes. So 2 to 10x. And I think like there's like in the investor community, there's this reassessment of like what is a legitimate outcome that we can actually expect, which is now pushing down pricing, right? Because if I get it at 30 and sell at 90, I might be happy, but if I get it at 80 and sell at 90, that's not gonna do me any good. Yeah. So, I mean, look, like I would, if I was a brand, I would raise money, but that's because I'm not that cracked and I couldn't do it without doing that. So if you can bootstrap, like always bootstrap if you can, but this idea that like consumer brands should stay away from like equity capital is like it's like insane to me. Like the equity markets for consumer products are like one of the biggest categories. Like it's funding. It's how you it's like how you. I agree with Will from this regard.
Yeah, and his category is significant there, where food and bev just has some different dynamics, I think, in terms of the supply chain. Like take the supplement example. I don't know how much better you're going to ever get the COGS in those businesses. Like maybe a lot better. I don't know, but like you're gonna have some economy of scale. Whereas like he's talking about again, like such dramatic reductions in COGS at more scale that it really it's obvious that you want to get to more scale. Again, it looks different on the P&L, but it's almost like the software consideration, where there is more OpEx. That's a good point.
So like a great example of this that I think we can use is Groons. So like Chad, he raises $10 million pre-seed. That should have been silly according to conventional wisdom. But like what Chad has done, and what I think Chad has done better than almost anybody, honestly, at this point, is he's actually, and we keep talking about this, he's built a business. Like he has systems, he has people, he has organizations, he has a machine, right? So like, look, like the bootstrap brands, like they're never that well run. Like they're well run from a cost perspective, but like they don't have, like you can't ask them, to produce financials, 10 days after the month, and they don't have like an office, which is fine or whatever. But like, they didn't, but like like if you want to build like a really serious company, I think raising money is a good thing. If you can do it without money, then all the better. But this expectation that like this is somehow like the wrong thing to do, I think we as a community have let the pendulum swing too far the other way at this point.
I think to go back to your points about expectation from investors, I think that's a really interesting idea, because when I've heard people make the point about, don't raise money, one of the things they say is that essentially there's a problem of valuations, right? That like essentially your capital partner wants a venture outcome, software outcome or whatever. And in fact, most CPG companies are not really suited to create that relative to what you raise out and all that. And that it requires, and certainly not D2C specific, that D2C brands aren't actually software businesses in the way that they grow. And so, all the original IPOs, of course, are the ultimate telltale sign of this. And
story thing.
Yeah. So I think, I'm not clued into capital markets, but I'm interested to hear your assessment of that as you're talking about it, because like, oh, that's interesting. If valuations become more reasonable and expectations become more reasonable, then it makes sense. And what it makes me think about is like almost any decision is the right decision at the right cost, you know? And so it sounds like if the cost is like, is like, if the cost is getting, or the expectations are more normal. And I also think your point about Chad is a helpful thing here too, which is like, if you go into it with a vision for, I'm going to build a $500 million business, and this is what I need to get there.
Which is also psycho.
Yeah. But you know, a lot of us aren't psychos. And like, so that's another reason to bootstrap is like, well, you know, when I am bringing on Patrick Adu to be my business partner and AJF Growth, you know, one of the reasons that we're doing it is because we have extremely aligned vision for how big we want to make it. And it's not that big, you know, we're pretty, you know, we think we could add some clients over time and it'll be good, but like, we don't. And so, and I think like when you're bringing on a partner, and essentially, you know, Patrick is going to be an equity partner. He's just going to be an active one. He's, you know, the equity has value. He has to buy it, you know, like, so, at least some of it. So like, and again, it's just like this alignment of vision that makes the case. Obviously that's a very small scale example, but I think what you're saying makes perfect sense, you know?
Yeah. I mean, like literally, like, if you took money, let's say you took like $20 million from a VC, and
that's actually exactly how much I got from Patrick for AJF Growth, $20 million.
Oh, perfect.
I'm kidding. It's a really valuable company.
Or let's just say like $5 million, and you get an offer to sell your business for $50 million. Let's say the VC invested $5 million at like $15 million. So they own like a third, and you get an offer to sell your business for $50 million. If it's a venture capitalist, that's like a 3 and change. You know, they would literally rather you ride it out and like it ends up going to zero than like take that like half the time, because they're like, well, like, you know, there was the thesis, and like if you just keep going, and then these poor founders end up working for 7, 8, 9 years for like a business that like isn't really
never has a chance. Not isn't really. Don't even couch it at all. It never has a chance to do that. Yeah.
Never had a chance. You're fine. Yes. Yeah. Never had a chance. But like they get gaslit by their VCs into being like, well, we should just keep going. Because at this point, it's been 4 years. The VC's fund is already like mature. Like they know if it's good or bad. Like, you know, this thing isn't going to make a difference. So they just would rather like, So like, I'm hearing this term a lot more called early growth equity. So like when we say growth equity, growth equity makes you think of like a private equity fund that invests minority stakes into like growing companies, usually underwriting about 3 to 8 at like the highest, like the most highest end. Let's call it 3-4x is kind of the core. And so like there's these smaller groups, you know, $170 million funds that are kind of coming down market, and they're calling themselves early growth equity, where like I'm going to invest in a brand doing 5, 6, 7 million in revenue and only expect to get a 3x. So I might invest, you know, 5 million in a brand doing 5 million, and then I hope that they scale to like 20 million and exit. You know, and like that's like where this capital like should live. All it took was $3 billion getting absolutely torched in 2021 to learn that. But now it seems as though like, you know, the market's the market, and it'll correct and it'll figure things out. And I think that's the direction that we're going. And that's a really healthy direction. And so like, if you're a founder and like you want to pay yourself and like not worry about your business going out tomorrow because you have to buy a PO for 100 units, like, you know, then it can make a lot of sense just to be like, hey, look, this person's aligned with me, and, you know, we're not doing the $500 million thing, or just be a Chad and chat it all the way to whatever. Yeah. But either way, that those options are available to you, and I don't think that any of them are wrong. I think it's honestly a personal preference thing.
Yeah. It's about what life you want, like
more than like a business decision.
Yeah, that's right. I like that. I'm just gonna clip that one part. Just be a Chad and chat it all the way. That's Drew Fallon. That's it. That's the entire. That's gonna be the entire promotional video for this.
I like that one.
Yeah, that's good. Well, it sounds like you're using it almost sounds like you're just talking about the Chad meme too. You know. Yeah. No, I know what you mean, but yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
we are low on time, and I appreciate you going over. Do you have any last burning stuff, Drew, on your mind as you look at things? Anything we didn't hit that you just really want to make sure to get to?
No.
Great. Drew Fallon is, as I said, the CEO and founder of Iris. Go check it out today. irisfinance.co. Did I get the website right?
That's right. Yeah. Wow. Good job.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
I thought so.
I'm too poor for .com.
Yeah, irisfinance.co. No, you got $6 million, bro. Go get that .com.
Spend it all on .com.
Yeah. Icon style. Irisfinance.co. Go check it out for your, especially late 7, early 8 and on figure business. Get that good financial information. Drew, thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me again.
Thanks for watching or listening. Do leave any comments that you want on this video. I would love to interact with them and see what's going on in your business, hear about your financial questions and thoughts, P&L questions and thoughts, raising money questions and thoughts. All those kinds of things are great, and I would love to go check them out, interact with you. I read all the comments, so go interact there. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you're watching or listening, because of course you don't want to miss out on other great content. I'm almost for sure going to have Drew back again in the future. We hung up the call and immediately started talking about how much we enjoyed that conversation and how we should do it again soon. Drew's been on a few times now. We've become friends. He's great. So you're not going to want to miss out on that and a whole bunch of other great content that I have coming up. Of course, you should email me at podcast@ajfgrowth.com, and you should go to my website, ajfgrowth.com. Fill out the intake form there if you'd like to work with AJF Growth in your business. And thanks especially to my sponsors, Move Supply Chain and INTELLIGEMS. Go check both of them out. The links for them are in the show notes. That's everything for today. Thanks so much for watching and listening. See you next time.